Hi, folks. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. And welcome to the second session of the RiseUp Radio with Katie Greenwood. And I think if you have already seen the first session, you know who Katie is. If you don't, then you should go and check out the first session. Well, Katie, welcome to this second session of the RiseUp Radio with us today.
Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to tap into one of my favorite topics,
Yeah,
leadership development.
so absolutely, that's the topic, folks. For us today, we'll be diving deep into leadership development strategy. How can you get started? How can you craft a winning leadership development strategy? So, Katie, what fuels your passion towards leadership development? We did touch upon it, slightly in the first session, but why is leadership development so critical?
Yeah, we did tap it about it, but my passion runs so deep for leadership development. It's where strategy and inspiration come together to make a real impact because it's not just about managing people, it's about leaders who build and transform their teams and they
Yeah.
really put people first and then the organization thrives.
Hmm.
So today I can't wait to dive in and really kind of I always say peel back the onion and give you guys some really good tips on how to get started yourself. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
excited. This
Awesome.
is this is a
Cool.
fun topic.
Cool. So let's begin with fundamentals, right? I always like to start at the top, right?
Absolutely.
Why is it essential for organizations to build leaders and people management capabilities?
That's a great question. Leadership development isn't a nice to have, it's really the backbone to your successful organization.
Hmm.
Strong leaders keep teams focused, right? They inspire engagement where people want to really connect. And if they are really engaged, it's going to create a culture where people thrive and
Hmm.
people are excited to be there. Now, without strong leadership, teams lose directions. This is
Yeah.
when silos form and engagement drops. And that's
Hmm.
really where things start to crumble. I
Hmm.
look at investing in leadership development because you really want to start to focus on your talent pipelines. And if you do, it's going to help you reduce hiring costs and ensure smooth transitions into key roles, whether it's internal promotions or bringing out in outside talent. You want to really focus on it because if you are able to find those internal, you know, roles, you can
Hmm.
retain top out talent by
Totally.
really offering growth opportunities while then turning managers into role models.
Totally.
We need managers who are living our company values, leading
Hmm.
with the growth mindset, and out there solving problems with their teams. So
Hmm.
I believe that's really strong leadership development. It's going to be your competitive edge and your competitive advantage moving forward.
Hmm. So it's not just one reason. It's basically benefits are many, right? It's like
Yeah,
an apple a day keeps the doctor away. A bad
totally. That
joke.
is so true. It's a consistency. You're right.
Yeah. All right. So, at a very symptom level, symptomatic level, where do you think organizations should realize that, hey, it's time for us to actually start investing in it?
Let your people's data tell the story. I know our last podcast we talked about data. I'm going to continue to talk about data.
Hmm.
So, if you start to take a look and ask yourself, what are your turnover numbers? What are your engagement scores reveal? How do your performance metrics stack up? You're going to start to realize that where you're finding your struggling managers are
Hmm.
often going to signal poor leadership. When
Hmm.
you think about it like a sports team, all
Yeah.
right, without a good coach, there is a significant problem because
Hmm.
talent alone isn't enough to win. I want you to imagine employees because, you know, oftentimes employees will get overwhelmed because
Yeah.
their managers can't share a clear vision,
Hmm.
which if they can't share a clear vision, they're not going to inspire that team. Trust is going to start to erode. I don't know about you. I've been on a team like that
Same here.
and it crushes productivity,
Totally.
it
Totally.
crushes morale and trust. And it's not fun to be on those teams, right? These are the leaders who
Yeah.
become the bottlenecks to actually
Correct.
getting stuff done.
Correct.
Strong leadership changes everything. It
Hmm.
empowers your employees, it makes them feel safe,
Hmm.
and it makes them want to collaborate and
Hmm.
open up. And that's how innovation and new ideas come from,
Hmm.
when those employees start to feel like, you know what, this is a great place for me to work. People
Right.
start to rave about it to their friends. And you know
Hmm.
what they also do? They talk about it on Glassdoor. So it
Hmm.
becomes a multiplier effect. So happy employees means stronger teams and real results. So
Yeah.
leadership development isn't optional. It's going to really be your key to long-term success.
Hmm. Right. So, in essence, if you look at it, right, there are three
Mhm.
major pillars or drivers for leadership development, in my opinion. For
Yeah.
example, the first one is more about understanding the gaps in the organization that you have, the talent gaps that you have. You have the right people to be able to, feed into your succession pipeline and put your company towards the success path, right? That's
Mhm.
primarily number one. And the second is more tactical, looking at all the KPIs, employee turnover, performance, and which are absolutely critical for the organization's success. So it's not a feel good factor anymore. It's basically the core principle behind the success of an organization, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember last time we talked about not being fluffy? This is
Hmm.
not about
Hmm.
fluffy. It's about
Totally agree.
strategic, analyzing the data,
Correct.
giving the leaders the tools they need to adapt and succeed in a
Hmm.
constantly changing world. I mean, we have dealt with, between the pandemic and all these different things, the world is changing rapidly.
Hmm.
So we need to ensure that our leaders have the right skills, the right
Hmm.
resources, and also the most transparent communication
Yep.
from up, down, and all around, that's going to help them grow, but also tackle the real changes and really drive that long term success. It is very much a puzzle that we have to put together and make sure all the pieces are in place.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's basically go a step further,
Okay.
right, down the rabbit hole. And we said that hey, leadership developments can help you fill in the gaps, right, or put the right people in the right places. But for that, you first need to identify what those gaps are and who to put at the right place, right? And there's a concept called talent gap analysis, all right? What is
Yep.
it? Can you take us through that more in your experience and walk us through that?
Absolutely. I want you to keep it really simple. Okay. So, a
Hmm.
talent gap analysis is going to be like a roadmap for your leadership development. We want to create some structure. It shows where your organization is now,
Hmm.
where it needs to go, and what's missing there. You want to think about that bridge and
Yeah.
how we get over it. It's like the bridge behind you. So it's going to help you spot leadership gaps. So, a
Yeah.
couple questions I want you to think about. Are you ready for the future challenges that are going to come up?
Hmm.
Do you have enough leaders ready for senior roles?
Hmm.
And to answer that question, I want you to check your pipeline health. This
Hmm.
is where succession planning comes in.
Yeah.
Identifying your gaps in your leadership pipeline is going to help you avoid costly disruptions and ensure your business can continue to run without
Hmm.
glitching
Hmm.
if there's not a person in that place.
Yeah.
My recommendation is, for critical roles, your bench should have at least one ready now leader or someone preparing within 6 to 12 months, at
Hmm.
least one,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
not multiple,
Hmm.
because a strong pipeline is going to minimize hiring delays and
Hmm.
reduce costs and keep your organization agile. Okay.
Yeah.
And ready to be able to tackle those challenges or even possibly jump on new opportunities. Again, competitive advantage is really important. If your competitors aren't doing this,
Yeah.
you'll be ahead of the game. You
Hmm.
want to be proactive about really safeguarding your company's
Hmm.
future success
Hmm.
and driving sustainable growth. And the
Hmm.
last thing is, make sure you're aligning with your goals, right?
Hmm.
Develop leaders who are equipped to scale your operations, manage that change, and drive innovation. These are
Yeah.
the key drivers of business success.
Hmm.
And by focusing on the type of leadership your organization needs, you
Hmm.
then can really direct development efforts where they're going to deliver the greatest impact. And
Yeah.
it's not just about creating leaders. You just mentioned it. It's about
Correct.
developing the right leaders with the
Correct.
right skill sets and the right mindset to reach the goals and be able to adapt with that change for the long
Mhm.
run.
Right. And as you were
Mhm.
as you were talking about it, right, one thought came to
Yeah,
my mind that typically, there's a misconception that, we would do this when we are large enough, right? When we, let's say, we become a large organization, but actually it's important for even small to mid-sized organizations that you need to start thinking about succession planning. You need to have, few
absolutely.
people ready for each and every role that you're building forward, isn't it?
I couldn't agree with you more. Don't worry about being large. You want to start small.
Correct.
It's the same process. It's just a little bit of a less of a
Fun.
population, right? And
Exactly.
it
That's it.
becomes it's still the same
True.
strategic things and it's tactical. And
Yeah.
we here, we're here to talk about the fact that we're going to encourage you to do a talent gap analysis. We've
Yeah.
provided a downloadable so if you're a small company, mid-sized company, you can use this too. And
Hmm.
it's pretty simple to use
Hmm.
and you can hit the ground running pretty quickly.
So, cool. We have the slide now, and that's my next question for you. Typically, there's a misconception that isn't talent gap analysis same as skill gap analysis,
Mm.
right? What's your take on that?
They're similar, but a talent gap analysis is really think big, stay strategic. A
Hmm.
talent gap analysis helps you understand what your organization needs,
Hmm.
how many leaders are ready to step up,
Hmm.
or whether you have the capacity to even handle this change effectively.
Yeah.
And it's going to identify the leadership roles and skills you're missing to stay on track. Where skill gap analysis is really focusing on individual levels, so
Hmm.
identifying specific skills that leaders will need to succeed.
Hmm.
Like this manager might need to focus on emotional intelligence, or this
Hmm.
one focusing on strategic thinking or conflict
Yeah.
resolution. While
Yeah.
all are important, some are more targeted,
Hmm.
and we want to be able to, in a skill gap analysis, pinpoint these gaps
Hmm.
so that we can show how to equip these leaders with the right tools to close those gaps as quickly as
Hmm.
possible.
Hmm. Hmm. So, in essence, basically, what you're saying is talent gap analysis is giving us an organizational view, which is top down, whereas skill gap analysis is looking at an individual's development view. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, can you give us an example of how we can use the skill gap analysis to identify, let's say, development needs of an individual manager? Or let's take an example maybe and get into workshop
Okay,
mode this time again.
absolutely. So, thinking about the skill gap analysis, you want to
Hmm.
think about it as a great tool to pinpoint, right? The
Hmm.
development needs of each manager. So, you want to start to identify your organizational gaps. You can focus on high impact roles. My
Hmm.
recommendation is your emerging leaders or those in your leadership pipeline to dive deeper into their individual needs.
Hmm.
You can start by using your data driven tools like if you use 360 feedback,
Hmm.
performance reviews are some
Hmm.
of the juiciest data we can get into, self
Hmm.
assessments. And we want to look for identifying specific areas for growth.
Hmm.
You can also tap into AI powered platforms that
Hmm.
can help you streamline this process by
Hmm.
analyzing feedback very quickly and identifying patterns while that's going to save you time and
Correct.
provide you some actionable insights. So, let me give you
Hmm.
an example.
Hmm.
For a manager ready for a promotion, think about focusing on the skills they need to elevate their performance now, like
Hmm.
strategic thinking or
Hmm.
communication. You
Hmm.
take those skills and you then next want to tailor a development program or plan
Hmm.
with a clear follow up and accountability. Now, this can
Hmm.
include pairing the manager with an in person coach
Hmm.
or a lot of times too, and I love working with Risely. I love using Risely AI coaching wizard.
Hmm.
His name is Merlin,
Hmm.
and I've incorporated it into my leadership programs because it's like a in your palm coach,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And this is
Hmm.
helping us improve communication or suggestions
Hmm.
that, if there's somebody that's not in house talking to that person, the manager can still kind of work
Hmm.
through that.
Hmm.
We want to set up these tools to track progress, provide real feedback time,
Hmm.
and ensure people are staying on the right path and they're not getting discouraged.
Hmm.
Because the second they get disengaged is
Right.
the second we lose people and they go back to their normal habit.
Got it.
So by combining the skill gap analysis with some AI, support, we're going to
Hmm.
really become more efficient in our approach and get them ready for future roles.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, so once we've identified the areas of improvement, let's say for an individual manager, the next step is basically implementation, right? So, what
Yep.
modes of leadership development have you experienced yourself, and how do you choose the right one?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I'm going to share with you my top three that I really love because
Hmm.
leadership development isn't a one size fits all. There's
Correct.
several methods to
Correct.
consider, and each has its own pros and cons. So really, it's depending on your resources.
Hmm.
Choosing the right one depends on what your goals are, what your
Hmm.
budget is, and
Hmm.
what your level of customizations your leaders need. So
Hmm.
I'll start with coaching. I
Hmm.
love coaching.
Yeah.
One-on-one coaching is a powerful tool for building self-awareness. It enhances leadership skills, it drives measurable growth, but it also makes it essential for key leadership roles. Some of
Right.
the ideal scenarios that I use one-on-one coaching for, senior leaders, high potential employees transitioning into new roles or facing some leadership challenges. You
Hmm.
want to help them really one-on-one develop those strategic decision making, more emotional intelligence. How do I handle conflict? Those kind of things
Hmm.
are really great in that safe environment that you're working one-on-one with a coach.
Yeah.
Some of the pros, it's highly personalized. You're
Hmm.
going to address the unique goals and challenges up
Absolutely.
front, and it's real-time problem solving,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it will improve immediate performance. This
Totally.
also gives an opportunity for a confidential support, which is
Hmm.
very, it creates a safe environment.
Correct.
So it really fosters open and productive conversations. Now, some
Hmm.
of the cons, it's time intensive for both the
Yeah.
leader and the coach. You want to make sure that it's a good pair, and it's possibly going to have a higher cost compared to group training if you are looking at
Right.
external coaches.
Hmm.
But really, you want to be able to set up those clear objectives so you can see that
Hmm.
one-on-one coaching delivering impactful, tailored programs
Right.
that leader can really start to say, this is
Hmm.
working for me and how.
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
I love mentorship programs. I really
Hmm.
do. It's something that I myself have
Hmm.
experienced over the years between being a part of a co-op program and having mentors through my college. I've always connected so well. And this is something that I've brought into a lot of different companies because
Yeah.
mentorship programs are a great way to grow leadership potential.
Yep.
It builds a culture of learning and really strengthens connections across the organization.
Right.
It's really cool to be able to have different divisions. This is where a lot of DEI comes in,
Hmm.
where you have many more diverse opportunities to have
Hmm.
people work together
True.
in different ways. You want to pair less experienced leaders with more seasoned professionals,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
what you do is you create this opportunity for real world guidance and
Yeah.
valuable insights. And when done right, mentorship benefits everyone and really drives that personal growth and
Correct.
organizational success. So some
Correct.
of the ideal scenarios that I've used them for
Hmm.
is, early career professionals or
Hmm.
new managers or
Hmm.
emerging leaders who need leadership support.
Right.
Situations where knowledge transfer is critical for continuous and cultural alignment are
Hmm.
really positive here.
Yeah.
Some of the pros is you get that real world insight.
Yep.
Mentees get practical advice and strategies from
Hmm.
experienced leaders, and you build this strong network. Networking is a beautiful skill, and it helps with collaboration. Mentors will help you connect with other people within the organization or other vendors or other industry experts. And it really creates that bond of relationship. And it tends to be, more budget friendly because it's in
Hmm.
house.
It's in-house.
Some of the cons, though, there is a time commitment, right?
Hmm.
There's a time commitment from both the mentors and the mentees, and it really needs to be structured. So you want to make
Hmm.
sure that there's a commitment up front. That structure is key. I typically, if I'm leading a mentor program, create a plan, create a structure so
Hmm.
that it can have the most impact. Now, really what's really important and most important is when you build a mentor program, making sure the mentor has the
Hmm.
right skills and the right
Yeah.
level of commitment, or
Right.
the level of engagement can
Hmm.
really disconnect. So we want to make sure those matches are really
Hmm.
great. But when
Hmm.
well structured, whew, this is about really creating stronger, more connected organizations as a whole.
Totally agree with you, Katie. And in fact, just sharing my own experiences, I've had mentors, and I think it's not only the mentees that benefit out of this program, even the mentors benefit a lot from these programs. They discover a lot about themselves as well, when they go through such a program, isn't it?
It's so true. I've been mentoring people for years, and it's not just, that 1 year that you were with them.
Hmm.
I'm still having
It's
monthly
lifetime.
calls or
It's
quarterly
lifetime.
calls,
Yeah.
coffee chats to
The
check
right
in because
relationships stick with you, basically.
it's
Yeah.
relationships. It's a
Correct.
beautiful connection.
Correct.
And it's something that brings really good light and really good
Hmm.
energy to me as
Hmm.
well as I go through.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. Let's move on.
All right, cool. One of my favorite ways and modes is a blended learning program, right? This is going to combine workshops with e-learning for balanced approach to leadership development. This is an opportunity when you get people now with the pandemic, okay?
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
brought more of the e-learning and up to
Yeah.
speed, the Zoom calls, the piece. So, this could be in-house where it's person to person. This could be what we're doing right now. There's
Hmm.
a lot of engagement tools
Hmm.
that you can keep people engaged, learning cohorts and whatnot.
Hmm.
And this is really ideal for your frontline managers, team leads, and leadership skills.
Hmm.
You want teams focused and collaborating together and solving problems, and it
Yeah.
becomes much more holistic
Hmm.
because right there you're providing teamwork and you're
Hmm.
building that into the workshop.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
love e-learning because it supports self-paced learning and
Correct.
reinforces material. So I use
Hmm.
this for pre-work. Sometimes I use it
Right.
in the session to get a
Right.
gold nugget or two. Or if somebody's like, Kate, I need to do a little bit more
Hmm.
and I need to learn a little bit more. I love LinkedIn Learning. You'll always
Hmm.
hear me talking
Hmm.
about LinkedIn Learning. I'll shoot them a quick LinkedIn Learning that I'm like, hey, check this out. Really
Yeah.
good gold
Yeah.
nuggets. And then we can talk about it after. Now, part of workshops are that it really, if it's not personalized and it doesn't
Hmm.
have the customization, it's going to be
Hmm.
seen as generic. And we
Hmm.
want to make sure that we don't just have that focus on short term impact,
Right.
mainly an event, but
Yeah.
really build in that follow up
Hmm.
along with that. So the follow up activities is critical on
Yeah.
the job practice, peer
Hmm.
discussions,
Hmm.
coaching with their managers, really partnering with the manager, okay? Because we're the
Hmm.
ones kind of being the liaison between them to ensure accountability and ongoing feedback. So this
Hmm.
is really, keep your workshops practical, keep
Yeah.
them consistent, and give
Hmm.
them a little bit of toolkit so that
Hmm.
they can walk out. And again, the AI wizard
Right.
in Risely is another big win for this as well.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of options. What you've experienced, what have you experienced so
Yeah.
far after working with L&D teams? Ashish,
Yeah. Yeah.
which ways do you head?
Uh, well, so if you look at the traditional modes, right, the current modes that you've explained, they all have certain strengths, right? But collectively, in my experience, and that's what I'm gathering with so many other, after speaking with so many other L&D folks as well, is that they
Yeah,
fail to bring three things together. The first one being personalization, the second one being, bringing a continuous mode of learning, and the third and most important is scale, right? Which is, are we touching each and every manager in the organization or not, right? And in a sense, that's the kind of thesis that we've kept while we were, starting to think about Risely, and that's basically one of the core principles from a product point of view as well, right? So when you look at learning today, right? A learner loses interest in a program if it doesn't answer, what's in it for them in the end, right? Why should they actually
absolutely.
consume the content? Why should I even bother spending, half a day of my, job time in this session and not spend it with my team? What
Hmm.
current challenges is it solving for me, right? These are the burning questions that a learner has, and they need to be answered, right? It's very, very hard for managers to take out time from their jobs and attend programs. And they constantly keep checking their emails and track what's going on with their teams because their mind is always back
Absolutely.
there, right?
Exactly.
And and finally, only a handful of managers get picked for these programs. So typically 5 to 10% in one typical cohort, which leaves out the rest, and they have to wait until the next cohort starts. So
Exactly.
that's primarily, what I'm starting to see as a trend emerging, where L&D teams are looking at programs which are solving these, and then without these or with these issues, the investments are becoming hard to justify, right?
Hmm.
They have multiple stakeholders, beyond employees that they need to answer to. How is the money being spent? What is the ROI coming in? Primarily. And that's the core conundrum that L&D teams are starting to look at and want to solve for as they go on.
I couldn't agree more. And this is another big reason why, you and I have partnered, right? I believe Risely is a great solution for the future. As I build out learning and development, but really leadership
Yeah,
curriculum,
yeah,
I just see it as a
correct.
huge win to really incorporate this together so that
Totally.
we can really see this investment come
Yeah,
together, but also give the employees what they need when they need
correct,
it.
correct.
And it's super critical. So again, it's not fluffy.
And it's been honestly, it's been a lot of fun, designing these programs with you, Katie. Just on that note, right?
It
I think
has
the
been.
future is a hybrid future where you need very targeted programs, which are a blend of e-learning content delivered in classrooms, along with products like Risely coming in to bring in continuous learning with AI coaching, with micro learning, and so on and so forth, right?
It's so
I think
fun.
that's where the
Yeah.
learning future is, especially for leadership development.
Especially, it has been a lot of fun to watch what we've been able to start to create. So I'm looking forward to more, our partnership in the future because it's a
Absolutely.
lot of fun,
Correct.
looking and watching what, where it goes and it just
Mhm.
keeps growing, right?
Yeah.
So it's
So
exciting. I
I,
love where we
I
are today.
yeah, I think we have digressed a little bit. We need to come back to our main track.
This is my
So,
favorite topic, man. Let's keep
yeah.
talking. No, I get you. Let's keep going
Yeah.
back.
So coming back to the approaches, right?
Yeah.
So there could be n number of solutions primarily, right? How do you choose what is the right approach? How do L&D leaders make that decision that, hey, what approach should we go with?
Yeah. I want everybody here to keep it simple. Start by asking yourself three questions. One, what are your goals?
Hmm,
Two, who are you training? And three, what's your budget?
hmm,
Once you answer this will help guide you to the
hmm,
best approach. So,
hmm.
for your senior leaders, right, one on one coaching is worth the investment.
Yeah.
For large scale initiatives, e learning or blended formats work best.
Hmm,
For building foundational skills, workshops are a great starting point.
hmm,
Leadership development is not just about building competent leaders, it's about creating confident
hmm,
and motivated leaders who inspire
hmm,
others and
hmm,
deliver real results. So,
hmm.
choosing the right method ensures your investment pays off.
Yeah.
And this is really where I want you to focus on. This isn't a luxury, okay? If
Hmm,
we are doing this right, it becomes the backbone of um, thriving organizations. And I
hmm,
love the quote is that people don't just work for great leaders, they stick with them long
hmm,
after the job is done.
hmm, hmm,
So we want to make sure our leaders have what they need when they need it so our team members can just feel like that they can be in flow and that they want to go to work.
hmm.
Right? It's keeping it as simple as that.
Yeah. Right. And I think we've already talked about, aligning your process with the goals and who are we catering. But I don't think we have touched upon the budget question. So I have a very brief
Mm.
question because we're going to discuss budget in a subsequent session in more detail. But roughly, what percentage of L&D budget should be allocated towards leadership development?
That's a really good question. There's no one size fits all answer. The key is to
Hmm,
making sure your investment matches your organizational goals and needs.
hmm,
You want to focus on building leaders who deliver results, and your investment will pay off.
hmm,
Typically, leadership development in your budget will take 20 to 40% of your
hmm,
L&D budget.
hmm.
And that's kind of rule of thumb for when I'm working
Okay.
with teams.
Okay. What does it depend on? I mean, there are a lot of factors I'm assuming, right? So there would be different stages at which you would invest different percentages. So how do you decide primarily? Do you have a rough framework for our
Mm-hmm.
audience today?
I would start with assessing your succession plan and your
Hmm,
leadership gaps.
hmm,
Once you identify the strengths and the gaps in your leadership pipeline, it's going to give you a lot of good data. Example, if you lack leaders ready for executive roles, you
hmm,
must prioritize leadership development funding to
hmm,
get them ready to go. With this in that succession plan, you're going to evaluate your pipeline maturity. A
hmm,
strong pipeline may only need some maintenance, while an underdeveloped one requires greater investment to build it
hmm,
up and
hmm,
then continue along the way. And
hmm,
another factor, which is really critical, is how economic and business conditions. In tough
hmm,
times, your strong leadership is going to ensure stability within the organization.
hmm.
And during growth, we need to make sure we're preparing leaders for new challenges and opportunities.
Right.
So, leadership development, whether it's a little bit or a lot of it, it has a line there, and
Very
you want to make
contextual.
sure
Yeah.
you're investing
Very
and thinking
contextual.
about it.
Absolutely. And going back and speaking with a lot of business leaders primarily, there's a lot of criticism that, hey, there's a lot of fluff, right? And the programs often fail to bridge the gap between theory and real world examples or real world situations. Um, what do you think about it?
I think it's true. There's often a disconnect between
Yeah.
leadership development programs and real world needs. Too many rely on generic, one
Hmm,
size fits all, take it off the shelf,
hmm,
that don't address the unique challenges that the actual leader faces.
hmm,
The secret that I have, which is not a wild secret, right, is
hmm.
shift from theory to giving them the tools and concepts
Yeah.
and put it into context so that they can focus on learning by doing,
Yeah.
gathering feedback, adjusting as you need. And that's what's going to drive the real impact. It can't
Hmm,
be a one and done, it has to be
hmm.
constant focus. We talked about feedback earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this will really help you make it so that there is
Right.
connection and value.
Right. Correct. So, in essence, it's basically going down to the 3 points that I mentioned earlier, right? Which is
Mhm.
a hyper-personalization, continuous continuity in terms of learning, and then democratizing the access to good quality learning for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Make it real,
Hmm,
right? Forget this endless theory. Focus on
hmm,
practical strategies
hmm,
that leaders can use now. Don't
hmm.
just teach emotional intelligence.
Right.
Have leaders role play real scenarios like resolving conflict or motivating teams, having really difficult conversations
Right.
that need to be had in a safe environment.
Hmm,
These are the real conversations that we need to be able to have our leaders be able to have. And we need to coach them because then they can apply them immediately.
hmm, hmm,
I love creating leadership toolkits
hmm.
with tactical resources like templates,
Yeah.
step by step guide, e learning tools. Again, platforms like LinkedIn Learning are one of my favorites. And
Hmm.
I love, gosh, I keep saying it. I mean, I love using Merlin, the coaching wizard in
Yeah. Because you
RiseUp.
can practice, you can basically
It's
simulate situations and
tactical.
scenarios, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the phone. I like to think about it as a
Hmm,
library card. When a
hmm.
leader is ready, the tools are there and
Yeah.
they're able to be self-sufficient. And
Hmm,
then if they need a coach or a high five from one of us, cool. But they have 80% of the game and they come to us when they need. And part of it too is follow through, right?
hmm.
Leadership isn't a one and done thing. Like you
Yeah.
development happens over time, right?
Hmm,
So we need to include coaching
hmm.
in peer groups. Peer groups is huge.
Yeah.
I love putting people into learning cohorts because
Hmm.
they're dealing with the same thing
Correct.
over and over again, and they can share and pair what works well, what
Hmm.
doesn't work well,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
can help each other. And I always want to get the manager of the manager clued in right at the beginning,
Hmm.
and because once
Always.
they have manager check-ins, it's gonna those lessons start to stick. And last but not
Correct.
least, practice.
Hmm.
Practice makes progress. Now, a
Hmm.
lot of people say practice makes permanent. I've wiped that away because I don't know about you, but I've never been perfect a day in my life.
It's
And it's
always
a
a
little
journey.
overwhelming.
It's always a journey.
It's a journey. So
Yeah.
practice makes progress.
Yeah.
Leadership is like sports.
Yeah.
Repetition builds up the superpowers.
Correct. Correct.
If we consistently practice and a leader starts to feel confident, they're going to turn those skills into strengths.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is leadership development works when it's personal and
Yeah.
it's practical and it's supported over time. And when it's done right, you just see the numbers and the extraordinary results, and
Yeah.
the people are just happy.
Yeah.
So, again, I couldn't be more happy to be doing the kind of work we get to do because we get to support these
Correct.
leaders in putting on their superpower capes of leadership and really making a difference. So
Yeah. Well, awesome. I think that's the end of today. Well, thank you for joining us again, Katie.
you're
I love this session
welcome.
again. And there you go, folks. Leadership development is not rocket science. It's very simple. You just have to get started. There are multiple, endless resources available. For example, we are giving away a leadership development strategy template. So download that, and that's basically your, getting started guide, right? And if you have any questions, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you. And till then, you take care.